It's 2:47 a.m., November 9th, 2025, 18 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coast. The USCGC Stone is patrolling international waters, tracking drug traffickers. The crew is on routine watch, radar is clean, then, without warning, gunfire erupts from the darkness. A Venezuelan patrol boat is opening fire on an American vessel. The Coast Guard crew scrambles to battle stations. This isn't a drill, this isn't an accident. Someone just started shooting at the United States. The Stone's captain has seconds to decide. Return, fire, or hold position. Each moment the Venezuelan guns keep firing, his crew is in danger. The rules of engagement are clear. But this could spark something bigger, something no one wants. He gives the order. The Stone's weapon systems engage. Tracers light up the night. The Venezuelan boat takes multiple hits. Its guns go silent. The vessel turns hard, racing back toward its own territorial waters. Smoke trails behind it as it disappears into the darkness. The immediate threat is over, but the situation is just beginning. The Stone reports the incident immediately. Command centers light up across the Caribbean and back in Washington. A foreign military vessel just attacked a United States Coast Guard cutter conducting legal operations in international waters. The message goes up the chain fast. Within minutes, decisions are being made at the highest levels. 2 U.S. Navy destroyers are operating nearby, USS Gravely and USS Porter. Both Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers. These aren't patrol boats. These are warships. Each one carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, advanced radar systems, and enough firepower to level a small country. They receive new orders. Proceed to the Stone's location. Establish a defensive presence. Show Venezuela what happens when you fire on American forces. The destroyers change course. Their gas turbine engines push them through the water at over 30 knots. By dawn, they arrive on scene. The Stone is undamaged, crew is safe, but the message needs to be clear. The destroyers position themselves between the Coast Guard cutter and the Venezuelan coastline. It's a strategic formation, a line in the water. They're not just protecting the Stone anymore, they're sending a signal that every radar station, every military observer, and every government official in Venezuela can see. 2 American destroyers, sitting just outside Venezuelan waters, fully armed and ready. The Venezuelan government can see them on radar, they can probably see them from shore with binoculars. There's no ambiguity here. Back in Caracas, the Venezuelan government scrambles. Their initial statement calls it an error, a misunderstanding. They claim the patrol boat crew misidentified the Coast Guard cutter. But intelligence tells a different story. American signals intelligence had been monitoring Venezuelan military communications. The intercepts reveal something unexpected. This wasn't authorized by Venezuelan high command. This was one officer, a young Venezuelan captain who made a catastrophically bad decision. He saw an American vessel in what he considered too close to Venezuelan territory, even though it was clearly in international waters. He decided to send a message. He decided to open fire. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for orders. He just started shooting at a United States Coast Guard ship. The Venezuelan military brass realizes immediately how serious this is. An unauthorized attack on an American vessel, 2 U.S. Navy destroyers now sitting off their coast. This could escalate into something none of them want. They move fast. The captain who ordered the attack is arrested within hours, not because Venezuela wants to punish him for attacking Americans, but because he acted without authorization and created an international incident that put their entire country at risk. The Venezuelan government releases a statement. They call it an isolated incident. They claim the officer acted alone. They promise it won't happen again. But words aren't enough. Not when there are 2 destroyers sitting in international waters, watching and waiting. The U.S. response is measured but unmistakable. The destroyers stay on station. Not for hours, not for a day, for 3 full days. 72 hours of American naval power positioned just outside Venezuelan waters. Every ship that leaves a Venezuelan port sees them. Every pilot flying along the coast sees them. Every radar operator watches those 2 contacts that never move. The message is clear without a single word being spoken. Touch American forces again and see what happens. This is what restraint looks like. But it's also what overwhelming military capability looks like when it's positioned exactly where it needs to be. During those 3 days, the destroyers maintain full operational readiness. Combat systems are online, weapons are ready, crews are at heightened alert. This isn't just a show. These ships are ready to fight if needed. Their Aegis combat systems are tracking everything in the area, every aircraft, every vessel, every potential threat. The radar coverage extends deep into Venezuelan airspace and territorial waters. The Venezuelans know they're being watched. They know every move they make is being recorded. They know that if anything else happens, the response will be immediate and overwhelming. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels are working overtime. The US delivers a formal protest to Venezuela through multiple channels. The language is direct. An unprovoked attack on a US Coast Guard vessel conducting lawful operations in international waters is unacceptable. There will be consequences if it happens again. Venezuela's response is apologetic but defensive. They emphasize it was unauthorized. They emphasize the officer has been detained. They emphasize they don't want escalation. But the US isn't satisfied with just words. The destroyers stay exactly where they are. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard crew on the Stone processes what just happened. They were conducting a routine counter-narcotics patrol. These missions happen constantly in these waters. Drug trafficking from South America toward the United States is a persistent problem. The Coast Guard intercepts smuggling vessels, works with partner nations, and saves lives at sea. It's dangerous work, but it's usually not combat. Until now, the crew performed exactly as trained. They took fire, they returned fire, they defended themselves and their ship. Nobody panicked, nobody made mistakes, but they'll remember this night for the rest of their lives. The night someone decided to shoot at them for doing their job. The attack raises serious questions about Venezuelan military discipline and chain of command. How does a patrol boat captain decide on his own to open fire on a US vessel? Where was his commanding officer? Who was supposed to be overseeing these patrols? The fact that this was unauthorized makes it almost worse. It means there's instability in the Venezuelan military structure. It means individual officers might make dangerous decisions without proper authorization. That unpredictability makes the situation even more dangerous. The US can negotiate with governments, but if individual officers are acting on their own, that's a different problem entirely. US intelligence agencies dig deeper into what happened. They analyze the intercepts, they review satellite imagery, they track the Venezuelan patrol boats' movements before and after the incident. The picture that emerges is concerning. The Venezuelan officer who ordered the attack had a history of aggressive behavior on patrol. He'd made radio calls before that suggested hostility toward US operations in the region. His superiors either didn't know or didn't care enough to rein him in. That lack of oversight created the conditions for this incident. One aggressive officer with guns and no supervision. It was an incident waiting to happen. The international community watches closely. Other nations in the region issue statements. Some support Venezuela's claim that it was an error. Others condemn any attack on vessels in international waters, but everyone understands the real dynamic at play. A small nation just attacked the forces of a superpower. The superpower responded with overwhelming presence, but not with destruction. That restraint is notable, but so is the message. The two destroyers sitting off the coast aren't there by accident. They're there to remind everyone what happens when you miscalculate. After 3 days, the destroyers receive new orders. They can return to their previous assignments. The point has been made. Venezuela isn't going to escalate. The detained officer is facing serious charges in Venezuelan military courts. The Venezuelan Navy has instituted new rules of engagement for patrols near international boundaries. Every encounter with foreign vessels now requires explicit authorization before any weapons are even aimed, let alone fired. The US message was received. Attacking American forces has consequences. Those consequences might not be immediate destruction, but they will be overwhelming presence, international embarrassment, and a demonstration of just how outmatched any aggressor really is. The Stone returns to patrol operations. But this time, there's a difference. Enhanced naval backup is standard procedure now. When Coast Guard cutters are operating in this region, US Navy assets are positioned nearby. Not because another attack is expected, but because the US never makes the same mistake twice. If someone wants to test American resolve again, they'll find not just a Coast Guard cutter, but destroyers, possibly aircraft, and the full weight of U.S. military capability ready to respond. Prevention through presence. Deterrence through demonstration. It's a strategy that's worked for decades, and it just worked again. The incident becomes a case study in military academies and Coast Guard training programs. What do you do when fired upon without warning? How do you balance self-defense with avoiding escalation? How do you send a message without starting a war? The Stone's crew and the commanders who ordered the destroyer deployment made the right calls at every step. They defended themselves, they demonstrated strength, they maintained discipline, they gave diplomacy room to work, but they never showed weakness. That balance is difficult to achieve in the moment when bullets are flying and decisions have to be made in seconds. For Venezuela, the lessons are clear. International waters mean international waters. The United States Coast Guard has every legal right to operate there. Attacking them brings consequences far beyond what any patrol boat can handle. The young officer who started this incident destroyed his own career and created a national embarrassment for his country. The Venezuelan government spent days doing damage control. Their military spent days watching American destroyers sit off their coast, unable to do anything about it. The cost of a few moments of aggressive stupidity was immense. For the United States, the incident reinforces something the military already knew. Presence matters. When something happens, being able to respond immediately with overwhelming force makes all the difference. Those two destroyers were nearby because the Navy maintains global presence. They weren't scrambled from thousands of miles away. They were already in the region, already ready, already capable of responding. That readiness prevented this from becoming something worse. If the response had taken days instead of hours, if the Coast Guard had been alone and vulnerable, the situation could have escalated very differently. The bigger picture is about deterrence. Every nation that operates near U.S. forces in international waters watched this incident. They saw what happened when Venezuela attacked a Coast Guard cutter. They saw the destroyers arrive, they saw them stay, they saw Venezuela back down. They learned the same lesson Venezuela learned. Don't test the United States in international waters. Don't fire on American vessels. Don't assume a Coast Guard cutter is operating alone. The U.S. has the capability and the will to respond, and that response will be calibrated to send exactly the message it needs to send. Now think about this situation from a different angle. You're a Coast Guard commander. It's the middle of the night. You're conducting a legal patrol in international waters. Suddenly, gunfire. A foreign military vessel is shooting at you. Your crew is in danger. You have weapons. You have training. You have rules of engagement. But you also know that returning fire could start something bigger. What do? Do you shoot back immediately? Do you try to maneuver away? Do you call for help and wait? The Stone's captain made his decision in seconds. He returned fire, he defended his crew, he stopped the threat. Then he reported and let the bigger response come through proper channels. Split-second decision, exactly the right call. This incident won't be the last time tensions rise in these waters. Drug trafficking continues. U.S. Coast Guard operations continue. Venezuelan patrols continue. But now everyone knows exactly where the line is and what happens when you cross it. The rules haven't changed. International waters are international waters. Legal operations are legal operations. But the consequences for violating those rules are now crystal clear. You don't get to shoot at American forces and walk away. You don't get to claim it was an error and have everything go back to normal. You get two destroyers sitting off your coast for 3 days, watching your every move and reminding you every second that you made a very serious mistake. The Stone's crew returned to normal operations, but they'll never forget that night. The destroyers returned to their regular assignments, ready to respond again if needed. The Venezuelan officer sits in detention, his career over, his country embarrassed. And every military in the region learned a lesson about what happens when you miscalculate against the United States. Strength doesn't always mean firing every weapon you have. Sometimes strength means showing up with overwhelming force and letting everyone see exactly what they'd be facing if things went wrong. That's what happened here. That's the lesson Venezuela learned. That's the message the rest of the world received. Subscribe for more military analysis.